Developing self-awareness is one of the most critical things you can do to grow as a dental practice leader. It's a bit like the phases of the moon in that at times we can be in shadow and not fully aware of ourselves. At other times, we can be really fully illuminated like a full moon and have a deep understanding of who we are. When that is the case, we give out this kind of really bright energy, this bright light that shines really clearly and draws people to it. And we come off with real confidence and authenticity that people want to follow. So developing self-awareness is absolutely critical. And in this video, I'm going to talk a bit more and use the analogy of the moon to give you a structure for developing your own self-awareness. For those of you who are moon experts, this will be obvious, but some of you may not be. So I'm going to use the structure of the moon, and the moon is comprised of 3 different parts that we can then use to structure in the same way our self-awareness. This is the structure of the moon. So on the outside, we have the outer crust, then we have the mantle, and then we have the core. If we liken this to self-awareness, the outer crust is kind of what's visible to others in the current moment. So these are the little things, the little craters, the little ditches, the little trenches that you see on the moon. Similarly for ourselves as our own self in terms of how we respond in specific situations that are visible to others. And the more we can understand this, the better we will be. The second bit is the mantle, which is kind of just below the surface, forms a large part of who we are, and also can affect then what's visible to others. And then finally, deep down at our core are some key elements that really kind of keep us on track, much like the core magnetic fields kind of pull us in certain directions and keep us fairly stable. All right. So this is, again, another part of our self-awareness of the core understanding of core elements to us. So this is a structure I'm going to take you through in a bit more detail as to what these 3 different sections look like and how this applies to self-awareness. So firstly, on that outer crust, the stuff that's visible in the current moment, we have to be aware of mentally, physically, emotionally, how we are showing up at any one particular time. And what are the things that are affecting us and how we really are, and what can we do to then actually manage those? If we don't have any awareness of that, then we can't do anything about it. So firstly, mentally, are we in a place where we're feeling quite focused, or are we more scattered and a bit all over the place? Mentally, where are we at? Really think about that. So when we walk into the dental practice in the morning, do we feel quite focused, or are we a bit all over the place? In which times you need to perhaps take a step back. Sometimes it can be simple as having a bit of a break, making sure you're properly hydrated, to give yourself a bit of time just to pause and think about, well, what's my real focus for today? But recognizing the state that we're in really helps us get into the most constructive place. So mentally is the first one. Secondly, then physically, are we struggling with a bit of pain from something? We've got a bit of an injury, or are we actually just physically tired? Maybe we had a long day in clinic the previous day and we're just feeling a bit tired. Perhaps we've not been sleeping well, perhaps we've got unwell kids, whatever it might be. We need to be aware of the place that we're in and actually make it and manage it. So if we are feeling tired, or how can I just take 5 minutes, perhaps to have a little bit of a break and completely switch off from it, to give myself a small chance to re-energize. So physically, where am I at, and what things cause me to be in a different physical place? Again, so we can manage that as best as we can and be in the best physical state. And then thirdly, emotionally, what are our triggers? What things kind of really get to us? Because if we know what those are, we can then be aware of them and respond more appropriately rather than reacting as we might have done in the past. Okay. So what are those emotions that really are running through us, and what things trigger those different emotions? Because if we have an awareness of that, it means we're able then to manage it much more effectively. Okay, so this outer crust is about what's visible to others in the present moment. The more we understand that and what our physical, mental, and emotional place is at any one time, the more we can then engage appropriate or manage that and engage better with our team members. So, outer crust of the moon. The second one then is that mantle just below. And I think within that, there are three kind of different areas which I'm thinking about. Well, what are my strengths and weaknesses? What am I naturally really good at? Perhaps you're really good technically at something from a dentistry point of view. Maybe you're super awesome at doing some cosmetic bonding. And then also, what are things that I'm perhaps not so good at, and how do I get those up to a certain level? So tapping into those real strengths and just making sure your weaknesses are at the appropriate level that don't cause you a problem. Right? So strengths and weakness, then behaviorally also, what am I naturally good at? Do I like spending time, or do I really connect? Perhaps you connect really well with people, but then maybe your organizational skills are not so great. Again, figuring out, being aware of these things, either you can have other people help you, but also be focused and making sure these things don't become a challenge in certain situations. And at the same time, making the most of those behavioral skills, again, in the right situation. So strengths and weaknesses. And linked to that is, what do you really love doing? What gives you all this energy? What do you really, really enjoy that gives you energy? Because if you know that, obviously you need to balance about making sure you have enough of that in your work that brings you joy and energy. Because if you're only doing stuff all the time that sucks energy out of you, you're not going to achieve much, right? So yes, there'll be things you have to do from time to time you don't like doing, and that's okay. But if you're doing that all the time, it's going to be really, really tough. And think about, again, perhaps there's somebody else who might want to do that, who actually loves doing that. All right. So what do you enjoy doing? And then finally, what are your needs and wants? What are your kind of basic needs? Food, money, water. And then also your wants. What's your vision of the future for your life? Because this will give you energy. If you understand what you want and where you're heading, this will give you a level of energy, drive, and motivation. So a lot of this is about managing your energy and also making sure you're using your strengths and weaknesses and what you love doing according to the situation. Right? Okay, so mantle, just below the surface. And then lastly, we have the core deep down inside. And this is what really kind of keeps us on track. It kind of moves us along, but keeps us as in the moon. Magnetic forces keep things consistently moving along and steadily in the right way. This is about values. What are your values? Do you really know what your values are? Whenever I ask people what their values are, yeah, but can you write them down? And have you got small number? I always recommend keeping it to a very small number, perhaps 3 values, because otherwise we've got these massive values and actually don't really know what our priority is. You'll live lots of other values, but actually, what are the 3 values that really, really mean the most to you? So it gives you some priority in terms of making decisions when perhaps things are a bit difficult, not quite sure what to do. Come back to those 3 priorities of your 3 core values. Okay, so values, number one. Second one is purpose. What's your deep down inner purpose? If you can really understand what this is, it can give you immense drive and energy. And it's not just about money, right? That is something that we need, and that goes back to our previous wants and needs. But actually, deep down, what are we here to do? What are we here on this earth to do? The impact that we can have on others. So really thinking about that, and deep down, what's your core purpose? Simon Sinek is somebody who's done a lot of work, a lot of mass amount of material out there about your purpose. Wrote a book called Start With Why and Find Your Why that helps you actually find your why. Have a look at this stuff online, Simon Sinek, but really try and get a grip with what am I here to do? As an example, my purpose is to facilitate people's development so that they can fulfill their potential. And that's what I continually strive to do. All right. So what's your purpose? Core purpose. And then finally, beliefs. We all have beliefs about ourselves and also about others. But in particular, what are the beliefs that we have about ourselves, about what we're capable of and what we're not capable of? Often these beliefs can be really limiting for us in life in general, but specifically as leaders. So having an understanding perhaps of where we have limiting beliefs and how we can go beyond those will be really, really helpful. And vice versa, perhaps we believe sometimes we're uber awesome at certain things, and that shuts us off from other people's views on that. So again, what are our beliefs? What are our core beliefs? If we can understand these three things, it is just give us this core of kind of confidence and authenticity about who we are. So that is the final section of the moon and of our self-awareness, which is this kind of core deep down inside to us and understanding what we are about. So those are the three different sections. And as I said in the beginning, if we really have a deep understanding of ourselves, we can move from this kind of partial darkness being covered as to having an understanding of ourselves into this fully illuminated moon where we really understand ourselves fully. And this creates a level of confidence, a really bright kind of light that people want to follow. Go about understanding your self-awareness and really dig into it and spend some time exploring it. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.